Welcome to TYT Nation.
Go to Joe 303.
Tomorrow, superstars. Tuesday.
Is that the stable genius saying that?
30330. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And
This is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
We choose truth over facts.
We'll see who's sleepy.
I'm not going nuts. 30330. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the you know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
I got started out on HBCU. No overstaying.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
30330.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. It's Wednesday. We got a show for you guys. Bit of a rough time last night. We'll talk a little bit about that. But a tough time yesterday. As you've heard in the intro, that's going to be our nominee. Oh boy. So already here we go, the long road down. It feels like I've seen this movie before, and yay, we've all seen this movie before. We know exactly how it ends. So, but anyway, look, we'll talk about that. Uh, we'll talk about one bright spot that did happen yesterday. Then we've got, of course, a little bit of Trump news. We're trying to stay away from COVID today because, well, I mean, I know everybody's talking about it. It's kind of the dominant news story, and there's a lot of important stuff to talk about when it comes to that. But I don't want to get demonetized today, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that stuff tomorrow. Um, we've got, of course, Chuck Schumer ceding the conversation on relief for the American people to the Republicans. You're allowing yourself to be outflanked by Republicans. Oh no, here we go again. And then if we got time for it, of course, we'll go to some non-COVID news. So we're going to try to do that today. Yes, James Watson. I know. Again, it's kind of the big news that's going on. So I'm trying to find things that are not COVID related, but it's really tough. It's really tough out there. So we'll try to figure that out. Hopefully everybody is doing well. And if you're, don't say the thing, the thing. I already said the thing. So, but as long as my clips, don't get demonetized, that's fine. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well in your isolation. My wife's actually getting sick, so I don't know what it is. It's probably not COVID, I hope. But she's like, I'm not feeling good today. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Oh no. So we'll see what happens. She works in the healthcare field, so not good. Okay, so anyway, look. So last night there was a Democratic primary. It's pretty criminal that there was a Democratic primary, but there was one in 3 states, and all 3 states went to Joe Biden. So it was pretty bad. Arizona was the closest, and Arizona was a must-win to keep Bernie Sanders in the race, and it didn't happen. Biden made a clean sweep, all 3 states, Illinois, Arizona. I mean, look, it's a disastrous win or it's a disastrous night for progressives, disastrous night for Medicare for all, for Green New Deal, free college, and so that's the reality of it. I mean, it was bad. In fact, Bernie Sanders earlier today said he's going back to Vermont. He's going to reassess his campaign. Not only that, but he's pulled all of his digital advertising. That's it. We're done with digital advertising, which means he's going to drop out. So, and of course, since last night, he's under immense pressure from the establishment to wrap this thing up. And look, understand that's why we had voting yesterday. That's why the states did not, and the DNC put out memos saying, well, we're going to punish states that don't hold a primary in the middle of this pandemic, global pandemic. The DNC says, no, let's still have voting as usual, right? Even though there were no poll workers, there's a big shortage of poll workers. Things weren't working, places were shut down, all that stuff. No, we're going to have a primary anyway, because our number one priority is ending Bernie Sanders. And that's it. So And look, Bernie Sanders is going to do what Bernie Sanders said he's going to do. He really doesn't have any choice. He's going to endorse Biden, and campaign for him. I mean, understand if he doesn't, right? Say he runs the third party ticket and is a spoiler for Joe Biden. Donald Trump wins, which I think Donald Trump will win anyway. But that'll be another thing that they can say, oh my God, look at the ego of Bernie Sanders. How dare he run as a third party candidate? He has spoiled everything, and he brought us Donald Trump. In fact, he's worse than Trump now. And so that's not going to happen. He's going to drop, and he's going to endorse Joe Biden. Maybe he'll try to get some concessions, and look, nonetheless, right? Even as Bernie Sanders will drop out and campaign for Joe Biden, he'll do 30 plus rallies for Biden. He'll work his ass off. And if Biden still loses the nomination, who's the first person they're going to blame? Bernie Sanders. Why? Because we've seen this movie before. We've been here before. So look, if you understand, this is why I'm salty, and I'm sure a lot of you are salty as well. I am salty as hell. So I'm not interested in anything that the Democratic Party or Joe Biden has to say at all at this point. I'm not interested. And I'm, look, Torn Tukaroa for the super chat here says they weren't elections, they were shams. The DNC practically broke health guidelines from the CDC. There's got to be laws or something. No, there's no laws. They did break CDC guidelines. And not only that, but they downplayed the risk. Simone Sanders, a Biden surrogate, came out and said, oh, no, it's safe. Go out and vote. No, it'll be fine. I mean, what's wrong with people waiting, 2-3 hours in line, elbow to, shoulder to shoulder, and then touching dirty voting machines or whatever common spaces when there's a pandemic that lasts for several hours on surfaces or in the air? No danger at all. Go ahead and vote. Look, people, if anybody, and I was watching TOIT's coverage last night, and Nando Vila made a ton of great points on this issue. How many Biden voters, how many older people, which are the most at risk for COVID-19, how many are they going to die? Because they were told, no, it's okay, go out and vote. Go out and vote. And here's what's even more frustrating is that today you already have Biden people come out and saying, well, look, that's Bernie's fault that they came out and vote. He should have ended the primary. He should have dropped out earlier. So understand that no matter what happens, we are going to be blamed. We're going to be blamed. We're going to be attacked because they hate progressives. They really do. They hate progressives. The establishment hates progressives more than they hate Republicans. In fact, they love to reach out to Republicans, the suburban Republicans, the conservatives, right? And so that's what we have. Goku Gini asks, who will be our next progressive hero for president? I only see Ro Khanna, and we might need to start soon. Well, look, we don't really need a progressive hero, right? And this is the problem, right? What we need is a mass movement, one that doesn't have to elevate or anoint a king, right? And that is a problem. At least that's what I think about this, right? I'm not one of those people who chooses personalities over policy, and I'm not saying you are either. So, but it's one of those things where if there's somebody that comes along and they espouse the right policies, and they talk about the right policies and they vote the right way, and they've got a record, okay, then yes, if you want to pick up the mantle. If not, then it has to be a sustained movement involving everyone. And so, look, what we have to do, and Michael Brooks talks about this as another incredibly, smart, well-connected person. or well-read person, right? We have to start thinking about strategy. We've got to strategize, and we've got to say, okay, how are we going to beat this, right? How are we going to beat the establishment and actually enact progressive policy? And I think the biggest hurdle isn't the DNC, right? Yes, the DNC plays a big part, or a fairly large part. But I think the biggest enemy and the biggest reason why we didn't see the turnout and why Biden is winning is what we have is, we have a media that is dishonest. We have corporate media that has defended Joe Biden, that will not show his record. And it's true for all these Democrats. At least they won't do it when it counts. Now, when he goes up against a Republican, you better believe that there's going to be mainstream pundits on CNN, MSNBC that are going to talk about Joe Biden's mental health. They're going to talk about Ukraine. They're going to bring that up and that corruption. And so they're going to bring up the fact that Joe Biden has a history of plagiarism and has lied in an interest of being neutral, because now the Republicans are going to bring this up and they're going to attack him over it. And so now we're going to be forced to talk about this. And so that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. Also, I think this COVID-19 thing is giving Republicans an opportunity to outflank Democrats on direct action. Again, yesterday I talked about how Mitt Romney and Tom Cotton were both considering, and Steven Mnuchin, by the way, they were all talking about sending money to regular citizens that are hurting. Now, among all the other stuff that they're doing is, trying to prop up corporations, big corporations, etc. You have them saying, well, we're going to give you the most direct efforts to fight this. And that is money in your pockets. We're going to give you money in your pockets. Whereas Kamala Harris, her plan was, we'll give you a tax rebate. You also have Chuck Schumer talking about giving low interest loans to small business. If we allow the Republicans to outflank Democrats or I should say, if the Democrats allow Republicans to outflank them on the left while still keeping their socially abhorrent, views, right? Then we're sunk. Democrats are sunk. And here comes fascism wrapped up in economic populism. So, yeah, that's bad. That is disastrous. And so I'll get into all that stuff later on. But again, the question is, where do we go from here and what happens? And so nobody has the answer to that question yet. I certainly don't have the answer to that. But we have to figure things out and then figure out, what we're going to do in this current election. I know there's some of you that are talking about not voting for Joe Biden. I could definitely understand. And then there are people that are talking about, yes, we do need to vote for Joe Biden because if not, we're not going to be able to get those children out of cages and things like that. And so I understand both sides. And I'm not going to tell anybody who they should vote for or what they should do. I feel like that is your business. And you know me, I'm not one to vote shame. And so you do what you're going to do. You do what you think is best. All I'm going to do here on this show is give you the facts. So when it comes to, the general election, right? So when it comes to Joe Biden, I'm going to tell the truth, right? If the Republicans are lying about him in part of his record is to go after him, I'm going to tell you the truth on that. If Joe Biden lies about something, I'm going to go after Joe Biden on that. Trump lies about something, we're going to go after that. Look, I have a feeling that this entire general election will be nothing but a lie-off. And it's going to be disastrous. But it's one of those things that I promised that, when I started the show, I promised you guys that I was going to be honest 100% and give you the facts. So you can make your own decisions. And I'm going to continue to do that. So I'm going to be honest about Joe Biden and his record. I'm going to be honest about Donald Trump and his record. and we're going to do things. We're going to be objective. We're going to be honest. And, I'm going to give you the facts, and then I'm going to give you my opinion on it. Even if it runs contrary to my opinion, I'm still going to give you the facts because objectivity is what matters most, not neutrality. So, Chris Green says, with everyone staying home, YouTube views may increase and possibly help independent video creators. No. Any mention of coronavirus gets you demonetized, and the algorithm has been massively restricted. So what we have here is my channel is barely getting views. Barely. We're hardly holding on here because we're not getting exposed to a wider audience. And not getting exposed to a wider audience plus demonetization means we are basically screwed without your support. So that's why we've got a fundraiser. That's why I may have to launch more fundraisers as time goes by. If this lasts, a long time and I don't secure additional outside funding or recurring donations through like a Patreon or things like that, because we're just not sustainable at this point. So, and I'm giving you the truth on that too. And so, I hope we can keep doing the show. That really depends on you guys if you think it's a worthy investment. But as long as I'm here, I'm going to do the best that I can do and give you the facts and be objective. And so, all right. Anyway, that's it. Let's go into election stuff now that I've spent a lot of time. Okay. Following a group of decisive victories in Florida, Illinois, and Arizona, Joe Biden has taken a very large lead in the primary and is now basically claiming victory. And he did so by reaching out to Bernie Sanders supporters in this next clip.
Senator Sanders and I may disagree on tactics, but we share a common vision for the need to provide affordable health care for all Americans, reduce income inequity that has risen so drastically, to tackling the existential threat of our time, climate change. Senator Sanders and his supporters have brought a remarkable passion and tenacity to all of these issues. And together they have shifted the fundamental conversation in this country. So let me say, especially to the young voters who have been inspired by Senator Sanders, I hear you. I know what's at stake. I know what we have to do. Our goal as a campaign, and my goal as a candidate for president, is to unify this party and then to unify the nation.
All right, so that was the message from Sanders, two Sanders supporters last night from Joe Biden. Now, let's be honest, right? So Bernie Sanders has a huge hill to climb, right? In delegates, he is at 800. Whereas Biden is over 1,000. So, and look, the states that have delayed their primaries until later, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think that he's pretty much not going to be able to catch up to Biden at this point. So, look, Bernie Sanders himself has said he's going to reassess his campaign, and he's already pulled all digital advertising. And so I think very soon, Bernie Sanders will probably drop out. But here's the thing, right? So now he decides he wants to reach out to Bernie Sanders supporters so that he can unify the nation and unify the Democratic Party. Well, let me be clear. I don't think either of those things are going to happen. I mean, look, young people don't like Joe Biden. In every primary state so far, Biden has dominated with older voters, 45 plus. The opposite with Bernie Sanders, who overwhelmingly dominates with younger people. He crushes with the youth vote. In fact, look, a lot of people, turnout was actually a lot better than it was in 2016. So the problem is for Bernie Sanders is that, yes, while more younger people turned out, they also had voter suppression. They also had blocks to being able to vote in college campuses. A lot of the thanks to Republicans. But you also had a huge wave of voter turnout from older people who definitely turned out for Joe Biden. And so, look, older voters outvoted or outperformed old expectations. And so that's the reality. Now, there are, again, more reasons. Look, one of the things that I've been talking about is the criminality of holding primaries during a national emergency. Why couldn't we delay those primaries? Look, in all odds, Joe Biden still would have won those states, right? So it's not really a political issue. It's a national health and safety issue. Why couldn't they have been delayed? And so for me, I think those results are illegitimate. But look, as far as things that are that affected the vote overall, that are real problems, is massive voter suppression, as I said before, against younger people and against, look, voters of color. And many younger voters of color turned out for Bernie Sanders. And the other issue is having the multi-billion-dollar megaphone that is corporate media. That corporate media relentlessly defended Biden and attacked Bernie Sanders. All of that is true. But we also have to note and be fair that there's an overwhelming desire from the Democratic electorate to, quote unquote, get back to normal. Despite the fact that in every exit poll in the nation, Medicare for all, single payer, actually polls higher. People want overwhelmingly a Medicare for all, single payer healthcare system. But right now, since we have Donald Trump in office, a lot of these older voters and a lot of moderate voters themselves, or so-called moderates, decided to go with comfortable Joe Biden. They did not want a revolution. No, they didn't want a revolution, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't need a revolution. We absolutely do. And nothing is more apparent than that, than the situation that not only have we been in for decades, with stagnant wages, productivity outperforming wage and job growth, the fact that 40% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency and 60% can't afford a $1,000 emergency. And not only that, but the situation that we find ourselves in now with an economic contraction, right? And with the man-child running the country, who is about to be challenged by another moderate milquetoast Democrat, just like in 2016. Joe Biden is basically a male Hillary Clinton. And so, hey, look, we'll get to see how much sexism played a role in the defeat of Hillary Clinton. I actually think that Joe Biden is worse. I actually feel worse, more antipathy towards Joe Biden than I do Hillary Clinton, strangely enough, and especially considering how she has taken time out of her, day, every possible chance that she has had to go and attack Bernie Sanders. And so, but nonetheless, I still feel more antipathy towards Joe, and I'm not sure why. But look, Biden has serious issues with younger voters, and it's because we don't share a common vision. I know he talked about, but don't we have a common vision? No, we don't. No, we don't. In fact, Brianna Joy Gray said, and this is her retort to that, she tweeted just 2 words: we don't. We do not have a common vision. Now, you might ask, well, what don't we share? What are you talking about? Joe Biden believes in universal health care, right? Well, no, he doesn't. At least that's not his plan. His plan leaves 10 million people out in the cold. When he was vice president, that's when we got the Affordable Care Act, which didn't even have a public option. This was with a Democratic super majority, right? Why wasn't Joe Biden out there saying, no, it is absolutely unacceptable that we do not have a public option? Where was he? Where was Joe? Oh, he was nowhere to be found. At least not on that, right? So his, again, plan leaves 10 million people out. I believe in covering everyone. He believes in co-pays, deductibles, and premiums. Progressives, we don't. On climate change, Joe Biden has no bold action, getting us back into the non-binding Paris Climate Agreement. Ooh, bold, right? And then, of course, there's moderate investment in solar, wind, and fracking. Yeah, he's still going to continue pipelines and fracking. So progressives, look, we believe in full investment in solar, wind, and geothermal, all these alternative energies that don't release methane into the atmosphere. We also think we should take the subsidies away from oil companies, 100%, and put those subsidies towards alternative energy, right? And wind down coal, oil, natural gas, all the fossil fuels as soon as possible to replace them with alternative energy. All within the next 10 years, by the way, in which Biden would take the next 30 years by 2050. Yeah. On income inequality, well, progressives, we believe in a wealth tax, right? Joe Biden, not necessarily. And look, Biden on tax policy, remember, he was one that negotiated with Mitch McConnell to give the 96% of the Bush tax cuts. Permanent. So we do have a very different vision than Joe Biden. In fact, Joe Biden's vision is a lot more akin to the Republican Party than it is to progressives. That's all I'm saying. So this election, and look, here's the thing, this election, I know we're going to inevitably hear that, well, you guys are just throwing a fit, right? Because you didn't get the guy that you wanted. No, it's never been about a guy. What it was, and this is why Warren was popular in the beginning, right? Because she actually did have policy, and she supported progressive policy. And so if Bernie Sanders weren't in it, I would have been 100% for Warren. But then, why go for progressive light when you could have a full progressive? And that's why, of course, I chose Bernie Sanders. But nonetheless, right? This election is not about not getting, or our reaction to this is not about not getting the guy that we like, right? No, it was always about the policy. And it was always about doing what's necessary to protect the country. We need single-payer healthcare. This country needs it. Anybody who looks outside, looks at the rest of the news going on today, can see that it is absolutely necessary. We need bold climate action. We need to address income and wealth inequality in a very, very big way. If we don't do this stuff, and I'm afraid of this, and this is already starting to happen, by the way, we enable demagogues. We empower demagogues. And so that's what we're seeing from some of these economic calls from the right wing already to deal with our current crisis. Now, personally, look, I'm going to be honest with you, as always. I'm not buying the calls to unify. You're going to sit there and yell unity after 3 years of being, of smearing us as sexist, racist, and Bernie bros? Telling us that our plans are realistic or unrealistic, and that we're stupid, or that we're just like protesters that show up to events and then bother the speaker. Oh, you're such a bother. Oh, hell no. Look, if you want unity, put some substance on the table. Do they need us to win? I believe so. Will they do what's necessary to get our votes? No, I don't believe so. I mean, look, surprised me, right? Will some of us get out and vote for Biden? Sure. Tactical voting, getting out Trump, whatever you want to do, right? But will some of us not vote for Joe Biden? That certainly. I see a lot of that. And so regardless of what happens, though, if Biden loses and, after running a bad campaign, who's going to get blamed? We will. Whether or not we did the right thing, because remember, I did the right thing. I voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. I urged people to vote for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. And what happened? Well, we got blamed anyway. People like me got called Russian bots and trolls and said, oh, you're the fault of Trump. 12% of Bernie voters, a lot of which were independents, by the way, who were never going to vote for the Democrat anyway, unless it was someone like Bernie Sanders. well, then, they decided either not to vote for Jill Stein, or even some, yes, voted for Donald Trump. This is different. They weren't part of the Democratic Party to begin with. These were people that were brought out from outside the Democratic Party. You have a lot of that still, right? And those people are not going to go to Joe Biden. It's just, it's a fact. And so you've lost out on that coalition. You've lost out on a lot of independent voters. And so they're going to have to get along without that. And will that be enough to defeat Trump? I have no idea. Now, here's the other thing, right? And by the way, I'm not saying any of this to dissuade anybody from voting, right? Down ticket races are super important. If you're going to vote, at least, I mean, if you're thinking about not voting for Joe Biden, right? At least go and vote down ticket. Because look, down ticket races, even if Trump gets reelected, right? If you have a progressive or blue Congress, well, at least you're going to try to hold him in check, right? So there's that. There's at least a good reason for some of the independent voters to go and vote in the primary or vote in the general. And so, again, I'm giving you my opinion. I'm giving you the facts as well. Now, Joe Biden, here's the fact. Joe Biden's not going to institute any change. His VP pick is likely going to be somebody with like a Kamala Harris or an Amy Klobuchar, since he did say it's going to be a woman. I'd be shocked if it was Elizabeth Warren. It could be, but it really depends on how the rest of the campaign unfolds. I still think that it's going to be very possible to that he will lose to Donald Trump. I'm just saying. Unlike Bernie, Donald Trump's not going to go easy on Joe Biden. And a lot of independents, as I mentioned before, are not going to back Biden. And so all I have to say is there is an iceberg dead ahead, just like it was in 2016, and we are in big, big danger of hitting it. What else can I say? All right. So that's the bad news. Let's go to the good news. All right. Last night's presidential primary wasn't that great for Bernie Sanders supporters, but the night was not a complete disaster, and it kind of illustrates how down ticket voting is and voting in primaries is still really, really important. In fact, we've got a huge victory out of Illinois, and so I want to present that here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Dan Lipinski. Down goes Dan Lipinski. Yes, conservative Democrat Dan Lipinski has been defeated by progressive Marie Newman. Now, Lipinski is known as one of the last anti-choice Democrats in the Democratic Party, and was beaten in a very tight race. So now, according to the New York Times, Ms. Newman edged out Mr. Lipinski by 2 percentage points. Now, understand how close of a race that is. So, look, people turned out. They cast their vote in Illinois. And while Bernie Sanders did not win in Illinois, here you had a really important down ticket race that took out one of the most conservative Democrats left in the party. And he was incredibly conservative. And so with 494 to 500 precincts, she beat Lipinski by 2 points. And of course, she was a Justice Democrat. She was backed by Representative AOC. And not only that, but she actually also had some establishment support, which is interesting and great. In this case, welcome. Emily's List, which was, again, that establishment group, but generally supports pro-choice candidates. So in this case, going against Dan Lipinski made a lot of sense. Also narrow pro-choice, also backed Marie Newman. And so let me get into a little bit more of Emily's List, by the way. Emily's List normally, as I said, backs the establishment. But in this case, they were a huge ally in defeating Lipinski. And Lipinski basically was coasting on name recognition and dynastic politics. And so his family represented Illinois 3rd District in the Chicago suburbs for nearly 40 years. Mr. Lipinski's father, Bill Lipinski, first won the seat in 1982 and held it until 2005 when Mr. Lipinski succeeded him. And so, again, understand that this was a seat held by the Lipinskis for a very, very long time. And now that dynasty has been broken. That is huge. That's a big victory. Now, look, incumbency and name recognition right now are the biggest barriers to progressive challengers. It's not necessarily money. Yes, money plays a factor. The media obviously plays a big factor. And a lot of that, of course, is related to name recognition. And so those are very, very big challenges, sometimes insurmountable challenges. And yet, Marie Newman was able to overcome them. She was able to win. And that is huge. Now, Marie Newman, she had ran once before. She ran back in 2018. She was beaten by Lipinski. And then, now that she had her name recognition, now that she had been out there and being a part of that race, well, now that helped her a lot. It was enough. The establishment support also helped. And by the way, again, Emily's List, I keep calling the establishment, right? But in reality, yes, they're basically a fairly good group, right? And so they do back, again, a lot of establishment Democrats that are right on abortion issues, right? Lipinski obviously wasn't. There have been a couple of races where Emily's List backed the less progressive candidate, but understand that they were still pretty good on reproductive rights. And so that's not where the disagreements came. But now, as far as the Democratic establishment goes, like, for example, Nancy Pelosi and some of the, some of the DCCC and in these large donor groups, they stayed out of the race. And so let me go to the Times here. Despite their official stance, the party backs incumbent, top Democrats did not go out of their way to advance Mr. Lipinski's cause. With good reason, of course, right? Lipinski's views are far more conservative than those of even Mr. Joe Biden, which Joe Biden, of course, doesn't have a great record on Roe v. Wade. And we'll be honest about that. And also the Hyde Amendment. And so, look, it's one of those things where you have an even more conservative Democrat than the one who is now going to be our nominee. And so now that apparently made him an outlier among Democrats, in addition to voting against the 2010 healthcare law, Obamacare, and opposing abortion rights. He declined to endorse former President Barack Obama in 2012 and opposed same-sex marriage until the Supreme Court made it legal across the nation in 2015. So he was an incredibly conservative Democrat. Well, what was he doing as a Democrat? He should have been running in the Republican Party. I mean, it's crazy to think that he, is considered or was considered a Democrat. But again, that's why the establishment was like, no, we're not going to step foot in this one. I mean, we're not going to help you, but we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to help Marie Newman either. And so Newman did have the backing of groups like Planned Parenthood, NARAL, several unions in the group Indivisible, and again, along with Emily's List. So now, understand, again, that really helps, that non-interference from Pelosi and the corporate wing, these groups backing her progressive credentials, all of this helped her win. Now, in the race between Henry Cuellar, who votes 70% with Donald Trump, we saw the effect of Pelosi's intervention, right? And the Democratic Party's intervention, who put everything all in on Cuellar. And of course, Jessica Cisneros barely lost to Cuellar this time. And so that's a devastating loss. And so you can see how much that really has an effect. And so that's one of the things that we have to remember going forward Is this something that the Democratic establishment is going to intervene on, right? And how do we overcome that massive disadvantage? And so, us progressives, we need to look at what makes a progressive win and then strategize around it. Because we have an uphill battle. We knew this going into this, that it was going to be really difficult. You have incumbency, which is a massive advantage, money, name recognition, the most important thing. And there are ways to get around it, but it often involves running more than one campaign and continue, and to keep pushing up that, keep pushing that boulder up the hill. Now, not all wins are going to be like AOC's. AOC's was such a shock because, well, I mean, everybody knew who Crowley was in Congress, and so they of course backed Crowley. But what was interesting is that Crowley had never been to the community before, allowing AOC to basically go and campaign and get the trust of the actual local community. While Crowley was not at all interested in the community. And so she was able to do that very successfully. And that's one of the things that led to her shock win, even though she had no money, no support from the Democratic Party, and no media coverage. And so, but not every victory is going to come like AOC's. A lot of victories are going to come like Marie Newman's, where you just have to keep pushing that boulder up the hill. And so we've got to study what works and try to apply what works in other campaigns so that we can win, so that we can put more progressives in Congress and push the party to the left. And so that's it. And so, look, I think that's one way that we can win long term, because what we're going to do is what we have to do is start out from the bottom. Going to the top with a presidential ticket, that's not working. It didn't work this time. It didn't work back in 2016. And so you've got to start at the bottom in order to really kind of push a movement towards a progressive future. It's a long road, guys, but you got to do what you got to do. All right. All right, let's go to more fecklessness from the Democrats. Oh boy. In the midst of the economic downturn, both Democrats and Republicans have been trying to do their best to come up with plans. Republicans generally want to help corporations and big businesses, and giving bailouts to the banks and giving bailouts to the airline industry, who's asking for money. And Democrats generally are more concerned with things like paid leave. Of course, you can't really tell with some of the recent legislation that's come out, as, for example, Pelosi's bill leaves 80% of workers out of paid leave. So that's going to be a theme here in the story, because here again, we have another feckless Democratic attempt to do something to help the American people. Now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer went to the Senate and called for, get this, small business loans. Low interest small business loans. My mistake. To help small businesses during this time. Now, the Senate leader proposed a package that would also expand unemployment insurance and Medicaid funding, which is good, fund emergency child care and remote learning, among other things. But that small business loan thing got a lot of heat. Now, here's what he said on the floor. If you're a small business suddenly facing cash flow problems, we'd allow you to apply for a low-interest loans and other forms of direct financial assistance that can offer relief quickly and allow you to overcome this problem and keep your business going in a healthy way. Small business loans. Now, look, I do a small business. I have a small business. I'm independent contractor, self-employed. And so low interest loans, that's the last thing someone like me needs. In fact, all independent media is generally a small business. But not just that, of course, you've got your local stores, mom and pop shops that are facing a lot of difficulty because people aren't working and people aren't going and buying things. And so what is a low interest small business loan going to do when you're missing out literally on income? It's crazy. It's crazy. Now get this, right? In a tweet, he said, "We're proposing an initial infusion of at least $750 billion. It's bold, but targeted to those most in need." $750 billion. The Trump administration is proposing somewhere around a $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion bailout. Not only that, but $500 billion for regular people, for workers that are affected by this. But yet Chuck Schumer says $750 billion. Bold. Now, this $750 billion would go to hospitals, treatment, unemployment, Medicaid, forbearance for federal mortgages. Okay. Small business, childcare, and seniors. So that's in the package, right? And adds correctly so that the Trump administration is reportedly proposing industry bailouts and a payroll tax cut. You know what the payroll tax cut is? It's a stealth way to cut Social Security. Being honest with you, that's one of the goals that the Trump administration and Republicans are trying to advance. In the midst of this crisis, we're going to make a stealth cut to Social Security by cutting the payroll tax cut or giving you a payroll tax cut holiday. So, wonderful, right? Now, the Republicans also are doing something interesting. You know how this fear-mongering about socialism that we've heard for the last forever? Just about? Well, now, Republicans seem to love them a little bit of socialism. Now, one of their solutions, as I said before, involves a universal basic income, or at least a cash infusion of $1,000 to every person in America. So regular people can pay their bills. Now, that's not going to be effective on its own. There should be a moratorium on mortgages, rents, utility payments, and all that stuff while this crisis is ongoing, right? But did the Democrats think of that idea? No, they did not. In fact, when Pelosi when somebody in the meeting brought up direct cash payments to the American people to help them pay their bills, Pelosi shot it down. So, can't do a UBI, but we can do small business loans with low interest. Is this guy even a Democrat? But here's the problem, right? So what Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are unfortunately doing is they're not coming up with bold ideas. They're doing the normal milquetoast Democratic or Democrat technocratic approach. We got to have a little bit of moderation, guys. We can't be too radical, okay? Whereas Republicans are like, I don't know, let's just give people money. Free money, socialism, let's go. The problem, again, the big problem with that is that you have ceded economic populism to the right wing. Nothing but bad things happen when you cede economic populism to the right. Not only are you helping with Donald Trump's reelection, right? But you're also doing a paradigm shift in the parties. Because now people with the economic populism in time of crisis are going to go, are going to attract regular people, working people that are hurt right now. And they're going to see the Republicans as the party that actually cares about them. And the Democrats as means tested, because that's what they're doing. It's all means tested, mealy mouth. I don't really care about you. I care about giving small business loans with low interest in a time of crisis, half measures. What do you think is going to get the most support? Now, the Republican agenda is hideous and disastrous, right? Overall, again, during this same crisis, they're trying to cut food stamps. They're trying to do stealth cuts of Social Security. So understand, the Republicans are awful. And when you look at their social policy, they're a mess, a disaster. And so if you see that economic populism to the right, you're inviting fascism into your home. And that's into the country. And that's what these Republicans, that's what they're doing. They're inviting fascism into the country. They're doing fascism. And people will unfortunately fall for it. What are you doing, Democrats? No, now is a time for bold measures. I mean, look, if the Democrats love spending as much money as Republicans say they do, right? The Democrats would have come up with something incredibly bold and comprehensive, including, hey, you know what? Turns out that Bernie Sanders guy was right, that we screwed over with the nomination. We should have Medicare for all. But no, Joe Biden is still, in the Democratic Party, is still sticking with, I mean, a little bit of tweaks to Obamacare should be fine. Maybe a public option. This is how you lose, guys. This is how you lose. Look, and so, like I said, progressives were quick to criticize Schumer on this. Even Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes responds to Schumer saying, how about zero interest loans? I mean, why should the government make money off bailing out small business or any business, right? I mean, yes, large business can afford it. But at the same time, these large businesses who over leverage themselves and spend all their money on stock buybacks when they got massive tax cuts from the Trump administration, should they even get a bailout at all? I mean, that's the question, right? That's the question. Kristen Shiriko says, why do the loans need to have interest? Why do they need to be loans at all? Whose team are you on? Not ours, apparently. Craig Goldstein says, it's not acceptable to shut business down as a matter of health and then offer loans with interest when they suddenly experience cash flow problems because of the shutdown. Either suspend rent, mortgage payments, provide no interest loans, or preferably both. It's not complicated. Cats in the chat, that rhymes, just said, how about grants to small business that they don't have to pay back? That's another great idea. How is it that some random person on YouTube, and I'm not picking on you, has a better idea of what would help the economy than Senate Minority Leader of the Democratic Party? I mean, seriously. Why? Now, I mean, look, if you're, and I have the answer to that, of course. If you're a Democrat, especially if you're a corporate Democrat, I should say, going more conservative to start off with, well, that's going to be your default position. And we've seen that. We've learned that. Now, Zephyr Teachout, she says, small businesses will never be able to make back 3 months of closure, because that's what we're looking at. It isn't just cash flow, it is cash. And she's right. A lot of small businesses will go under. I don't know what's going to happen to us. I don't know what's going to happen to the show. We'll see. I mean, that's why we've got fundraisers going on. That's why we've got Patreon. That's why we've got, our channel memberships, because we don't know what's going to happen. Now, David Cleon says this, and this is a much more direct challenge to Chuck Schumer. What we're proposing, Senator AOC. Oh, damn. Here we go. Ashley Feinberg also adds, what I'm proposing, AOC, primary Chuck. Yes. Could you imagine House Minority or Majority Leader Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Love it. And finally, the Gravel Institute said this. Chuck Schumer is up for re-election in 2022. Somebody should primary him. Well, a lot of people have already had that idea, and we'll see. But look, again, you're not going to solve this problem. Again, we're in an unprecedented time, right? Nothing like this has happened in my lifetime, and probably in your lifetime either. And so we're facing very uncertain futures. We need big, bold solutions, not milquetoast, means-tested crap. And unfortunately, that's all the Democrats are giving us. And if the Democrats don't start acting bold and putting out bold solutions, then you are ceding the economic front to the Republicans, to the fascist party, and that will certainly not end well, especially for the people that the Democratic Party claims that it cares about. Okay. So one more quick story here. And we'll talk about Trump. All right. President Donald Trump promised that he would drain the swamp. Now he seems to be refilling that swamp with swamp monsters and loyalists while allowing others to be pushed out. A great example is the director of the U.S. government's Office of Personnel Management getting pushed out on Tuesday. Now, this person is in charge of human resources policy and the management of security clearances. Now, note that there were people a while ago, people like Jared Kushner, that were having some issues getting security clearances. And so this guy might have had something to do with that. Now, unfortunately, the person that was there, Dale Cabanis, is no longer there. So now what happens? Turns out he got bullied out of his job, literally. Now, Politico is reporting that Cabanis had quit because of, quote, poor treatment from the 29-year-old head of the Presidential Personnel Office, a man named John McEntee, and a powerful appointment at OPM, Paul Dans, the new White House liaison and senior advisor to the director of OPM. So you have McEntee and Dans, who are now in powerful positions. Now, what do they have in common? They're both Trump loyalists. Now, McEntee is actually a former Trump body man. He used to serve in the administration until, of course, he got into a little bit of trouble over some gambling issues, right? So during that whole thing, back when there's a slight semblance of order in the White House, although there really hasn't been over the last 3 years, but John Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff at the time, said, okay, I draw the line at this gambling stuff. You got gambling issues, you really can't be Trump's body man. Get out. Fired him. He's gone. Now, where's John Kelly now? Well, John Kelly was also fired by Donald Trump. And so now, with John Kelly gone, here comes McEntee. He is back. Politico adds to McEntee's return to White House has roiled the administration, with some officials criticizing the former Trump campaign staffer for what they see as an effort to stock the administration with his friends, including at least 3 college seniors. Seniors from college. Those are people that might be, I don't know, ill-prepared for the job that they have been given. But hey, look, they're loyal to Donald Trump, and that's all that Trump actually cares about. Now, McEntee was hired during a recent loyalist hiring wave that included members of his original team who Donald Trump feels most comfortable around. Among those rehires was our good friend Hope Hicks. Remember Hope Hicks, the one who lied to Mueller? Yeah. So, right. So, hey, she's back. McEntee's back. They're getting the whole band back together of corrupt Trump people. Awesome. Actually, not awesome. Turns out loyalty hires don't really make good policy experts. Just ask Jared Kushner how his Mideast peace plan went. Not very well. So the issue here is, of course, you've got yes men. How do you become a Trump loyalist? You do everything that Donald Trump tells you to do, even if it's illegal, as we saw with Michael Cohen, right? And other Trump loyalists. And not only that, but again, yes, you'll do criminal things, but you'll also not tell them when you're doing something wrong. So that's the other problem, right? That's how dictatorships run. They appoint friends and family to these important cabinet positions or positions in the government, and then they expect this to run. Well, actually, they don't expect it to run. They expect their buddies to profit. And that's what's happening. This entire Trump presidency is nothing more than a money-making scheme. And he's making friends for himself. He's making money for himself, and he's making money for his friends. And so that's really all it is. I'm still not sure Trump even ever wanted to be president. It was just a money-making scheme, but since he won, he's been like, I jump in it. Now I make as much money as possible, and people who are loyal to me will share in this. And here's the thing, though. I'm not saying that Trump is the only one who does this. No. I'm sure there are Democrats as well that hire loyalists, but it doesn't get reported as much. And that's because the media generally doesn't care about this kind of corruption. I know that's strange to say. Like, no, what are you talking about? We're talking about Trump corruption all the time. Yes, but what's different is that it's Trump. Not only is it more nakedly obvious with Donald Trump because he doesn't care, but let's be real. The media doesn't like Donald Trump. Well, I don't like Donald Trump either. And so that's why I report on the corruption, because it's corruption. And not because, I don't like Trump. That's just a side effect. That's a side effect of the corruption. And so, but look, they don't like him. And it's not because of his policy positions or it's because of his corruption. No, the media doesn't like Trump because he's rude. Because he's not deferential to the media, right? Because he calls out the media. And he does so in a lot of cases very unfairly. And he calls them fake news, says that, that they're the enemy of the people. No. The media has a bias. Yes. It is an establishment bias. It is a status quo bias, right? And it's not just that, of course, that there are bad faith actors within media. Us as progressives, we know this more than just as much as Trump people know it, right? Except that we're more unfairly attacked because we're progressive. But look, ironically, here's the thing that's happened during the Trump administration. The press has actually been better at calling out corruption than they normally are. Because again, you didn't see this level of reporting on corruption back during the Obama era. And so that's the big problem, right? They have been woken up only because somebody was rude to them. And that's bad. I think they're more willing to ignore it under other administrations, both Democrats and Republicans. And so that's my view. That's my view. So and in my view, this is clear corruption, obviously. And it is dangerous because you have a cabinet of loyalists that will not stop Trump from doing terrible things. And then putting people in jobs that they're obviously not prepared for. It's just more dysfunction in the government, all in order to make Trump and his friends extra money and letting them have extra power. Okay. Let's see. There's a super chat here that I want to read, by the way. Zach Sherman says, I don't know what I would do at 3 without you. Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. My hope is that, we're going to continue to be around. And all we're doing is asking for your support. And I appreciate those who give this show that support. So thank you. Let's see. there are a lot of great comments here in the chat, by the way. Sarjik says we don't like Trump because he's a liar and a sociopath. Well, absolutely, right? But that's not the same reason that the media doesn't like Trump. It's because he's rude to the media. And Icefire Dragon 689 says Trump not ordering enough kits because he's trying to downplay the numbers. Yeah, well, no, you're absolutely right on that. He turned down stuff from the WHO. I mean, really? Oh, in order to help his numbers. I mean, it's not only dangerous. Obviously, it's dangerous. It's stupid and it's dangerous. It's the worst. And so, again, I do like that the media has been tough on Donald Trump. But I have a feeling that it's just a one-off, that they're going to continue. If we get Joe Biden, they're going to be soft on him when he does corruption. And that's the big problem. Okay. But anyway, thank you guys for watching the show. Thank you, Cats, by the way. I do appreciate that. I'm out of here. Not sure if we'll be here tomorrow. Depends on how I feel, if I've got the coronas or not. We'll see what happens. But I haven't been feeling great all week. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll feel good tomorrow. So, all right. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you later.